So today we have two sets of speakers with us. I'm so grateful to have met them and learn about all the amazing and impactful things that they're doing in their communities. First, we're going to be hearing from Calhoun. Calhoun actually blew me away when we first met. He's such a kind and welcoming soul. Hi, Calhoun. So I'm incredibly thankful that you've actually agreed to join us today to share your knowledge and story with us on the COP platform. So Calhoun is coming to us from Dawson City in the Yukon, which just looks absolutely beautiful. You're definitely going to see a picture of it. So again, please take breaks and take care of yourselves as some of the content being shared today may be triggering. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Calhoun.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm not nervous, you're nervous. No, but I really first want to say thank you to Lisa and the SJA team for putting this together and bringing us together in community. It's so important that we address some of the things we're addressing here today, or address all the things we're addressing here today, and do it together. But we don't always have to be immediately together. So I just want to say a little content warning. I'm going to be talking about use and depression, bullying, grief, suicide, loss, and various forms of oppression I've felt as I speak to my story. And I just want to make sure that you have space to take that space that you need. If things get heavy, if you're not feeling it, if your dog needs to go outside, just know that this is a space for community and come as you are. Maybe you're welcome to put a hand up if you have something to contribute. I don't necessarily need to just monologue. I might be playing a few songs if the sound's working, and if the sound's working right, and maybe don't interrupt those songs, but past that, feel free. And thank you all for coming. Could I have next slide, please? Or do I think you click next slide, Lisa? Perfect. Oh, it's at a halfway transition. There we go. And yeah, if anyone does have anything to say, maybe Lisa, could you keep an eye on the hands ups in the chats and maybe moderate that or make space for that, please? So I'm Calhoun. Hi, my name is Calhoun. My pronouns are he, him. I was born on Mi'kma'ki, which is currently often known as Nova Scotia. And I currently live on Chin territory in the Yukon there. There's some maps to help locate, which is currently known as West Dawson, so across the river from Dawson City, Yukon. A bit about myself. I'm a queer settler descendant cis man with bipolar, but we like to call ourselves neurospicy. My parents are Rod and Lulu. You can see mom there with the red hair, and she was always is always a strength. I mean, she always, and not that whole lifting rocks and throwing things and stuff, although she's quite strong for a 7-year-old woman. But she taught me how to be strong for myself and in emotional strength. And then there's Dad, Rod Malay. We lost him about a year ago, and he's with us every day. He's a beautiful man, an artist and an activist. And there's a picture of him showing me how to jump into life with 2 feet, bloody knees and all. So I have family across Turtle Island, some traditional family and some not. I want to highlight that I don't differentiate. All my family is chosen family, whether someone was born to a similar ancestry or not, whether I share a grandparent with somebody, or whether I look very different visibly from somebody else. Our connection as family is what matters as family, and that's just a whole bunch of wonderful humans. And for me now, I work at Queer Yukon. I'm a community engagement coordinator here. I play music. I love dogs. Dogs are wonderful. I'm a really big nerd. I play lots of nerd games. I find it really centering. and I'm in recovery. And I would like the next slide, if you don't mind. All right. So I'm going to kind of take you through a process of my life from around when I started using through to where I'm at now, to kind of give an overarching view of where some of these pressures and social structures came and pressured me into my life. So I experienced a lot of bullying from a young age. It was a very rural or urban Nova Scotia, which I grew up in both, had very strong ideas of what a manly man was, of what a good, hard, drink hard, play hard culture of youth was, how cool stoners were, Hunter S. Thompson. And so there was a lot of bullying to make sure we all fit into those same boxes as we all were forced into. That was really rough. And that bullying, I'm sure many of you unfortunately are familiar with, hangs out in our culture and was not relegated to the 90s. I lived in a split world when I was growing up. It was very trans and queer posy at home in this arts community, artist commune that I grew up in, and then Jay and Silent Bob making all the gay jokes, and all the gay jokes on the TV filtering into all the gay jokes and all the queer jokes, trans homophobia, trans hate and homophobia on the media, making it into society, trickling down into my psyche, and really pink and bluing me real hard as a child. I remember situations where I wasn't allowed to play with pink toys, not because my family would care, but because they didn't want me to get teased. My first boyfriend, around the age of 8 or 10 or something, I didn't know that was any different than having a girlfriend until his grandmother decided it wasn't, and then shame came into that conversation. So and stigma. So there was lots of pressures around who one should be, who one shouldn't be, and then there was also these stratifications of like social stratifications between the rich and the poor, the wealthy, the privileged, and not saying that I don't carry a ton of privilege, but recognizing that as I was growing up, I felt there was some far more privileged kids I went to school with, and they got to go on all the cool summer camps, and my friends and I would get drunk. There's a picture of me drinking some 10% beer at about 16, and a picture of me rolling one of my first joints, I would assume, probably not doing a great job. You're going to see some stars throughout this presentation on people's faces. That's just because I wanted to make sure to protect people's anonymity and while we talk about heavy things. Next slide, please. So as I was growing up and I hit my late teens, early 20s, there was growing pressures. So anyway, feelings and needs, had a lot of those, as all teenagers do, maybe not fully addressed within the framework of what a coming of age story in the 90s would have you would offer. And so I fell in love early at around 16. We ended up getting married later, so I'll say my ex-wife and I were queer and polyamorous our whole relationship, and this led to some wonderful things and some wonderful perspectives, but it also meant that we had a lot of stuff to navigate. I had a lot of personal life feels to navigate. My partner, my ex-wife, had a lot of life things to navigate as well, and we had a really bad time communicating. I also had not got my mood disorder diagnosed, so I was neurotypical as far as I knew, but I would get these what I call big sads. Those are my depressive periods, and they would need big beers. And my manic moods would meet Molly, so MDMA. Molly is another word for MDMA, and friends. So I discovered that self-medication with stimulants really worked for me. Still does, I'm sure. Anyway, so a lot of poor coping communication methods led me to feeling alienated, frustrated, low self-esteem. There's also the physically taxing side of heavy substance use that really leaves you feeling either amped or drained, depending on what part of that cycle you're through. So I just really did not feel like, I felt like I was moving through life more than living and experiencing it during those late teens, early 20s. Here's me with a beer mist tree. Every Christmas, we would just make a red, green, and gold beer mist tree and drink the whole thing, of course, by the time, by the time Christmas was over. And here's another one of me trying to figure out how a barbecue worked with really weird sideburns. We won't get into that. Next slide, please. So Lisa, maybe if I might ask you to speak up if the sound isn't working right on the song, and we'll just skip the musical numbers and I'll ramble a bit longer. But this is a song called Room Alone that I wrote about depression. And a mushroom growing in a comfortable corner of a bedroom with just a smartphone for a light, eating chips off the carpet, hydrating on tears. If transplanted out to the forest, I'd die, and up here in the pillows I scream into. No one is welcome to see me. Before all of that, though, a panic attack, it's just me in my room alone. It's just me in my room alone. I feel naked now 'cause of this mood disorder. Hide from the crowd, just running away. And I hate the sound, my own voice sometimes, and I don't want to know what today was all about. I've been hiding away in my room, you know. I've been hiding away in my room, you know. And I'm writing a letter for no one to read, about being no one I'd like you to meet, creating a dastardly sinister scene where the world just doesn't want to hear from me. You got to leave something or be left behind. I'll cling to the loneliest comfort I find in being away from all of the judgment of the people that are made up, that exist just to judge me. And I'm writing an essay for teachers' approval. My grade is an F for not handing it in. It argues contritely for the sudden removal of my confidence in all circumstances. Again and again I'm in the same mess. Guess this is my life now, and I do try my best to win the approval of all my worst demons who criticize nightly my daily routines. Friends beckon me to come join in their games. I'll stay inside with excuses and shame. I will time to stand still with an effortless flourish. Substance use, day miss no Stonerville tourist, and I recognize I won't always feel this bad. Some days are better and there's days I just can't, and there's days like today I just can't concentrate for all of these intrusive thoughts of self-hate. that's the song. Next slide, please. And that song I find really highlights the space and the need. A lot of times when we talk about use, we talk about filling a hole, filling a cup, filling something, a need that we have inside of us. And I think with this story, I really want to highlight some of the needs that I've had that I filled with substance use and filled with unhealthy behaviors. I know we're moving into the culinary world, like, yeah, there's some unhealthy behaviors in there, but still. And thank you all for listening, by the way, and the kind comments. That's really nice. But yeah, just like I really want to highlight the hole that we fill, the hole, the pressures that we address when we address with heavy use. And culinary world pairs well with depression. So I wanted to be a rock star when I was younger, don't now. Just want to help people and play my nerd games and play my guitar. But I was feeling really worthless at the time. And this falling into what started out as some side jobs doing cooking, and then moving into chefing a little way too early in my life, because the restaurant I was at needed a chef, and I was the confident white guy that was there to say yes. And even though there were way more qualified people at the space, unfortunately, they got looked over, of course, because of the way our world, racist world is. And looking back, that was really, really gross. At the time, though, I was just like, okay, I got this job, right? But it would give me these little bites, these mise-bouche of worth in a world that I felt was worthless. These little, hey, you accomplished a thing, you did a thing, the restaurant's not closed. And it brings me to staff drinks as a metaphor, and the cycle of that, where you have these little bits of worth from work, these little bits of community at work, these sides of life that have these positive, constructive things. But at the end of the day, you get the staff drink, you get the other staff drink, and then you just start, you back out to the next bar, you're out to the metal show, then you're to the after party, and 3 bags of drugs later, it's like 3 bags of drugs and 3 shifts in the kitchen later. Suddenly you get a day off and you just crash. And then you start that cycle again. And it's really how we work. I now work in a caring profession with Queer Yukon, and a big part of why I wanted to move towards this is that intent to do good by everyone, including the staff, and including the staff's lifestyles and the people the staff talk to and interact with. It's a whole, I guess, holistic, I think is the term, although sometimes that term is used in situations that don't really sparkle for me. But yeah, it's like, I feel that very much in the space I work at in Queer Yukon. We're starting Queer Union, woo! Anyway, next slide, please. How to celebrate feeling really, really bad. Woo! Okay, here's some fun celebration times. Try getting married. That's right, I did. It did not fix the problems. Cocaine is mostly meth anyway, so might as well save the money and switch to meth. Now, that brings up stigmatization and drug of choice. I really wanted to keep that in because at the time I felt like I was slipping into more dangerous and I guess, well, they were more stigmatized drugs, right? Cocaine was a classy party drug, and meth was something that the poors had. And looking back, I'm like, well, no, whatever drug of choice is your drug of choice is your drug of choice, and that's all that matters. If we're talking about what drug would be better for you or worse for you, I don't really look at it like that. I feel like the drug that you have, we're going to talk about that in a song coming up, don't worry. Whatever drug you're using at the moment is the drug you're using at the moment. It's not healthier or less healthier than the other drugs in a way, because it is the one you're using and the only one you're using right now, or the only mix that you're using right now. And that's okay, because you're self-medicating, you're getting through. There might be danger involved, but that's not the same as saying that you should be doing low instead of meth. You should be doing uppers instead of downers. You should be smoking pot instead of this or that. What keeps you going and keeps you with us is the intervention drug that's important right now. And we lose a lot of people in this world because they don't have that coping strategy. And I'm still here. I'm still with us because I did have those coping strategies, and thankfully I've outgrown them and I moved away from them, but I'm still here because of these drugs and these things that we're scared of. Maybe it's not the drugs themselves, maybe it's the way our society's treating them. But I didn't know any of that at the time, so I went traveling to find a place. You know, wherever you are, there, wherever you go, there you are. Well, I was trying to find a place I wasn't in. I was trying to find a place, looking back, that my mood disorder didn't live in. I was trying to find a place that that I could feel better. I was really not stoked on the relationship I was in, or I don't know, I should have left it, and that led to divorce, and that'll be the next slide. We're moving into my mid-late 20s now, moving along. It's way more comfortable to see it from this perspective than to be inside it, but y'all aren't getting to meet all the beautiful people that I met as well. And look at that cute dog. That's my dog, Girly. Divorce happened. I was in Toronto at the time, suddenly homeless. And I went wild. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what up. So I went wild. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of sexual and romantic adventures. I hit Tinder hard. I hit Grindr hard. I made myself very available in the punk and metal scenes that I was, circles that I was in at the time in Toronto. And it was really fun. There were dangerous spaces within that, anywhere from template, just very pushing my limits with drugs, pushing my safety with sexuality, and really starting to move towards a world that was a reckless abandon that I sort of moved away from in my teens in a comfortable relationship. And I felt like I wanted to pick up where I left off. I was living on people's couches, so I was sleeping out. Girly was a great watchdog. I'd pass out wherever the heck I did, and she would just like hang out with me for the whole night, make sure I was okay, and I'd hang out with her and make sure she was okay in other spots. We ended up getting this little car here, and then we lived in a car, and that was real nice. And yeah, I got to meet myself at rock bottom while coming to terms with change, didn't I? That feeling of worthlessness that culminated through my teens and early 20s and landed me in the spot where I didn't really know how to get out, and I didn't know that I was anything more than a catchphrase. Lots of thoughts of suicide. That's when I started going into the doctor, like, oh, go into the doctor, turn around, catch myself in the stairwell, drag myself back by the scruff of my neck, sit down. Doctor, I think I might have the depression. A few months later, it's type 2 bipolar. I didn't even know that I had these high energy things. I just thought I was finally excited on life, or I thought it was the drugs, right? And then a whole bunch of rattly pill bottles that rattled my brain left and right, and trying to medicate it, and some of them were great and some of them exacerbated the suicide feelings, and that was probably the most danger some of the most danger I've been in. Those reckless times, it was getting, not so much getting in fights, but getting in between people in fights. I almost got really hurt a few times trying to help. And I guess I did kind of help, but And punk rock saved my life, trademark. Yeah, I know, right? But I connected with some wonderful people there in the Toronto scene. They helped me recognize that there's worth at rock bottom, that there's beauty in life still, and that there's a certain freedom in reckless abandon, and that I don't always have to be there. And maybe it's a step on a journey, and maybe there's ways of dealing with it, like playing music again, and not because I want to be a career musician, but because I want to talk about my feelings, and that's when my music really started happening. um, I might have still been living dangerous lifestyles, but after a while I had this purpose. Like you can see in the sidebar here, that's a ride share that Gurley and I took, that we were asleep, and then we woke up and the driver had been driving way too fast in the snow, and it flipped the car, and we all three of us were fine. At the end of it, first responders said they had no idea how we were fine, but we were just all plowed through the snow. But just as like, I didn't even think of it. I took it in stride. There's another day I could have died. Whatever. Let's go get bacon and eggs. And to go from that nihilism to hope was profound, even though it didn't change any of the active. I was still panning for my money to buy my drugs, or sorry, panhandling for my money to buy my drugs and booze, to make it out to the bar, to make my cover. And eventually that turned into punk houses and getting to live with my friends who were in similar situations, and maybe on to the next slide. Ooh, we're making it through. Also, time check. Does someone want to let me know how much time we have left in the chat there?
You're good, Calhoun. Don't worry about it.
Cool. Well, in that case, we're going to sing Manic Crash, which is my song about the intersections of substance use, social stigma, and mental wellness. Also, the title for this presentation, because life's been all peaks and valleys, strikes and gutters, ups and downs, dry toast or buttered. Sometimes it's a glorious day, and sometimes things just don't go my way. So it's another trip to the LC I go, wrestle up some dollars for a golden glow. Hey, don't judge me on how I code. You're throwing stones from an ugly $1 million glass hose. Well, it's bad for my mental health, they say, but therapy from a bottle is an affordable way. And when you're working for a living and the money's out of reach, you're drinking bottom shelf vodka, maybe flavored with peach, go and splitsies on a little bag of drugs. Have some good times with some good buds. We're having good times with good buds. Wake up, it's a brand new day, pounding 4 Caesars, and I'm on my way. Life's an oyster and I'm gonna shuck it. I got credit card debt, yeah, but I say fuck it, yeah? I'm in yesterday's beer soaked clothes, I still got cocaine just a running up my nose. I'm gonna go get myself fed, but then suddenly I'm back in bed. What? I get manic, then I crash. Substance used to fill the gaps. I'm getting manic, then I crash. So I'm getting fucked up. I get manic and I crash. Substance used to fill the gaps. But hey, it's better than feeling sad. Better than feeling sad. Well, I'm out to the bar that very night, and there ain't no rainy cloud in sight. I got some good friends about me, and we feeling like a boss at karaoke. 6 drinks in and I'm feeling sloppy. More Jaeger bombs, and don't try and stop me. What you all gotta look at me for? You I run away and then I act like you're probably gonna rain today. Cause I get manic, then I crash. Substance used to fill the gaps. I'm getting fucked up. Try and stop me. I get manic, then I crash. Substance used to fill the gaps. But hey, it's better than feeling sad. Better than feeling sad. that's a story of a human just trying to cope. Sorry. Spotify, I do not have Spotify, and I got a little distracted. That's a story of a human just trying to cope in a world treating us like expendable folks. But I got some good friends about me, and we help each other through hard times aplenty. I'm not gonna judge if you're not doing fine. I've addressed a rough day with a whole box of wine. Life keeps coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. It shouldn't just come down to you. Do what you gotta do to get through when your life needs a drink and that drink affects your mood. Well, life and the drink could team up and fuck with you. And then the drugs come in again, don't always save the day. Well, we all got our own ways of self-medicating. Well, I get manic, then I crash. So I'm getting fucked up. Try and stop me. I get manic in the gap. But hey, it's better than feeling sad. Better than feeling sad. Thank you. Next slide. And that was a composite of experiences from that. So there I was. Punk rock saved my life, trademark. In this space with all these amazing, lovely, queer humans, having gotten through my 20s, my dollarous 20s, and I'm in my early 30s, and I'm on tour in that tiny little car that's still running, by the way, about to give it to a friend for a birthday, and clown car vibes with like four stinky punks and a stinky dog, Toronto through to Newfoundland, all the way up here to the Yukon on tour, and I wanted to stick around in the Yukon. I figured, going back to Toronto was just going to be more cooking and cocaine and metal shows, and if I was lucky, and worse if I wasn't. And so I figured I'd take a few weeks off. So I stuck around for a few weeks to make some money, and a few weeks turned into a few months, turned into a few years, and here I am now. And I started healing. And unfortunately, that includes grief. Unfortunately, that includes grief. And I got to grieve how I felt like I'd lost this time. I got to grieve the people that I lost. Actually, let's just take a moment here and grieve maybe the people we've lost. Hey, just taking a moment. The people that may not have made it this far. Yeah, lovely humans, and they're missed every day. But, you get the survivor's guilt, right? Did I make it through because X, Y? Did I make it through? Who am I now? What does making it through mean? How do you fill that hole that you've been filling? You can't suddenly go from, yo, I quit drinking and smoking meth, to, hey, I'm healthy, complete, whole person with no needs at all, like some sort of caricature. So I started replacing with nerd stuff. I started early with music, with community, with being able to game with my friends, to be able to join with my friends in community. I really started growing into the queer community here in Dawson. I really learned that there was this philosophy that I had been developing, that I didn't know that I had been developing, that was saving my life, that was recognizing how important these small kindnesses that we have in life are. These small kindnesses to ourselves, how being kind to ourselves helps us perpetuate that energy outside of our own personal circle, that there's this love that connects community And it doesn't have to be a love for self or for others. There can be times when you're not feeling a lot of self-love, that you can bring love for others to your love of community and connect and fill that hole, fill that gap. There's times that you can be feeling love for yourself and maybe not have all the patience for community, but you can exist in that space with that love for yourself. And it's all replacement, right? It's all like the same as I quit drinking coffee, I started going jogging a lot more. It's taking something that you rely on in your life and putting something else there in its place that you feel is more healthy, that is more conducive to your lifestyle. Because really, when it gets to the end of it, we only have responsibilities to ourselves, and our responsibilities to ourselves extend to our responsibilities to the environment, to the global community, to our immediate community, sure, but all of those responsibilities start with the self. There's a social worker, writer, and teacher named Cindy Baskin who says the self is always first in the circle. You can't carry anyone further than you can carry yourself. And that's really, I started just a couple of years ago, I started going to post-secondary again. Never thought I would be able to. Got a line in a song that's something like, showing up to class sober really feels weird. Never thought I'd really be able to do the post-secondary thing, and here I am. I'm getting my Bachelor of Social Work at Yukon University. Wonderful institution, by the way, not what I would have expected at all from a post-secondary institute, thanks to the lovely support and guidance from Kwanlundun First Nation, Tonquichan Council there in Whitehorse. Oh, we were on an online class together. Oh, it's so cute. I love this internet world. We live in sci-fi magic land where we can make friends all around. So yeah, just like, how am I defining myself now that I don't drink? I'm defining myself in smaller acts instead of being this caricature of drunk fun party Calhoun. I'm defining myself every day in the choices I make. What does recovery mean for me? I wrote that down to say pass to that, because I think that that's not necessarily framed a way that I would want to, but I really wanted to discuss the fact that maybe what does recovery mean for you isn't necessarily a question that people have to answer. Maybe what I'm driving at is that I just described this relatively painful process of coming of age in my mid-30s, which is what felt like, and going through a lot of stuff, dealing with pain in weird ways, poorly coping in the best ways that I could, and refining those coping mechanisms. And that's really where I wanted to bring this conversation. And I'm very proud that I was able to sum this up right here. But it's that defining coping mechanisms, these coping strategies, the problems in people's lives are not necessarily so cut and dry, and the answers to those problems are not so cut and dry. So as we're a community of practice moving forward to help people through these times, we need to recognize that there are things under the surface that are being addressed that are not necessarily right there. I just saw a meme recently that was something along the lines of, when you're housed, you have a place to have your worst moments in alone or in private. And when you're unhoused, you don't. And just because you see somebody in an extremely bad moment of their life doesn't mean that that's them for their whole life. It just means that they don't have the ability to protect themselves from the embarrassment of you watching that moment. And I think that that concept carries through to a lot of the work that we need to do in humanizing substance use, and recognizing that this isn't any different than someone going for a jog, getting good sleep hygiene. Like, sure, it's dangerous and that is scary. I'm very happy that I survived, and I'm not okay with the amount of danger that's there for everyone I care about, everyone that I don't know who I still care about. That is very important that we address at a political scale, at a safety scale. But what I'm talking about is the addressing of the little things, of these mounting, building pressures in our lives and how we deal with them. And some of us have coping strategies that really are sustainable, and some of us have coping strategies that can kill us, but they're all the same. Some of them are more taxing, some of them are smellier. They're all the same. We're all the same. We're just human beings. And that's really where I wanted to bring this. And so now that I'm moving into a space where I work in human rights through Queer Yukon, I work in support and care and love, and I've moved away from the culinary industry. We do community dinners and I get to cook for people, but it's free food to bring community together. Last one went really amazing, by the way. Rutmeat, R-U-T-M-E-A-T, performed. They're a Vuntagwichin noise performer. Check them out, Rutmeat online, R-U-T-M-E-A-T. Fantastic. But anyway, a little plug for a pal there, but yeah, it's not my responsibility. It's my responsibility to be alive. Maybe it's my responsibility to do that well by my books. And that includes, for me, healing myself and healing others. But there's been times in my life where that has not been true. Maybe healing others. I've always wanted to be a caring hoon, but healing myself wasn't always on the docket, on the menu, on the to-do list, and that was okay. And maybe in your practice, you're going to be working with folks who felt that way. And I just want you to know that that's how we, like, here I am, I survived, I'm a happy, healthy member of society, and that is every person who's having a rough go. That's everybody who's having a rough go, is someone who is currently a wonderful human being who needs the support to get to a space where they can change some of those strategies. But just in substance use, we are trying to get ourselves to that spot of feeling better. You know, some of the biggest conversations I'd have, you know, like 5 a.m, blasted out of my mind with my pals, talking about how we're going to build a donut shop and be the best employers in the world. You know, that was never going to happen. Obviously, we were barely going to keep that apartment. But we did care. We wanted better. We saw our friends who were doing better, and we were proud of them. And now when my friends who might have been still be having a really rough time tell me that they're proud of me, I take that for what it is. I take that as a connection, as a lifeline, knowing that even if I'm not having a good time, I know someone else is doing well. And I hope all of that isn't too obtuse. I hope that's tangible. I think we'll go on to the next slide now, if that's okay. And here's some of the people that are in my network. I know I blanked out their faces for privacy, but they're friggin' lovely humans. Musicians, artists, poets, and warriors. And the song is called Network. And it's about the social networks that we have. It's a suicide prevention song. It's a song that says, I want to be there. And if I can't be there, you'll be there. And if you can't be there, I'll be there. But we've got this as a community. Thank you all for joining me. And I'm really excited for Chris's presentation. Here's to all of you. Here's to all of you. Here's to all of you. Here's to all of you who've helped me through, who've helped me get to another day when it could have gone a different way. Here's to every heart that has been bruised, yeah, came running when the chips were down, putting their own problems on the shelf. Here's to everyone took the time to find the strength to hold a hand that reached up, not expecting another human hand. And here's to all of you keeping your close ones close to heart, reaching out far into the dark to be there when we feel like we just can't anymore. Now here's to all you loving hearts that take away a cold still dark, said it wasn't really much yet texted with that human touch. Here's to all the voices that say stick around one more day. We love you just the way you are. Don't drive that fucking car tonight. Here's to all the hearts that mend, just to break time and time again. We'll see you there, beautiful souls. Problems I won't fully know, but you can talk to me at length. We'll hide away, we'll cry and shake, we'll bear this weight, we'll struggle on. So let's listen to our favorite songs. Help for the helper, 'cause we are a network, and you can't carry anyone past where you are yourself. Help the helper. We are a network. You don't have to be alone in this fight. We'll be there with you by your side tonight. Here's to all the pieces of broken homes that came together. Here's to all of you who found the strength to be there for me. Here's to everyone that held your hand. Thank you. Well, that's my presentation. Q&A time. A little shout out from little plug for work. If any of y'all across Turtle Island have any community members or know any queer community members that are coming up to Dawson ever, please connect them to Queer Yukon. You're more than
I'm now going to hand it over to Chris, who is going to share with you his story and expertise. Again, if folks need to take a step back or just leave, please take care of yourselves. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay, so my name is Chris McBain, and I'll just position myself. I'm a queer white settler on the unceded territories of the Niitsitapi, the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, the Yahi Nakota, Tsuut'ina, and members of Métis Region 3. I am neurodivergent, and Calhoun, I loved your story, and I love neurospicy. That's fantastic. I'm HIV positive, and I'm also a former injection drug user. And I don't identify as a former injection drug user to stratify myself from people who currently use substances. I do it to stay rooted with my people. And so I'm bringing to you this presentation today. It's a really important topic for me. It was something that I was very much involved in. I no longer party, I'm a retired partier. But I know that when I was seeking resources for support around this in Calgary, there's absolutely nothing. And a lot of service providers don't know about what we're talking about. A lot of people in the 4 treatment centers that I went to didn't know what I was talking about. It was met with a lot of disdain. And so the nonprofit that I work for created some funding, and we and hired me, and I've been able to kind of focus my efforts on building trainings for service providers on how to support people who are involved in the party and play scene. And this is not that presentation, though. This is something that I've been working on separately, and I just I wanted to bring this perspective to the table, because there is so much that is happening, so much negative framing around what chemsex is. If you look at a lot of the research prior to 2020, 2021, it's all very much framed as a crisis that is fueling the AIDS epidemic. A lot of the research is very much connected to connecting chemsex, or party and play as it's known colloquially, with new HIV diagnoses. It's kind of, there's a lot that's sort of missing the kind of nuance behind what's happening with party and play. So I want to present to you this idea, and it's, I guess, topical because it's Pride Month. What better way to spend the day than talk about sex and drugs, particularly gay sex and drugs. Those are my favorite topics. So, what I really want to talk about, why this is problematic in the way that we've been traditionally framing chemsex or party and play, is that it's further generating stigma around substance use and around queer sex. So if you were to try and sort of analyze maybe where some internal beliefs come from, like I was definitely raised in the Nancy Reagan era, if I'm dating myself, and that this is your brain on drugs, and if you do drugs, you will die. That's kind of what we grew up with as our drug education in the 80s. And that matched with my own upbringing, which was Baptist. And so, gays were going to hell. And so when we're talking about chemsex, we're talking about the fusion of sex and drugs as a sort of distinct phenomena. And so, so all of these things sort of contribute to sort of why the current framework that we're looking at this is problematic. And one is that it's fueling stigma. Another piece is that it's a reinforcement of heteropatriarchy, because here we have sort of this heteronormative thing being thrust upon us, that queer sex is bad, queer sex with mind-altering substances is bad, and what we know is that that's not true. So there's that reinforcement of a heteropatriarchy with the current framework, and it's pathologizing queer sex in a lot of ways. And so I'll talk about this in a moment, but a lot of people use substances in different ways for different reasons. One of the most common discourses that you'll hear around substance use is that it's a party, then it's a party with problems, and then it's just problems. And that's not true for everybody. I mean, if you want to think of it more as like a universe, and on one planet, there's sort of this kind of substance use and that kind of substance use. And certainly privately, I identify as an addict, I'm in recovery, but that's, for me, I had to stop because I couldn't stop. And anytime I use in any particular way, it leads to just this, wave over me. But that's not the case for everybody. Certainly in a lot of the research that I did for my job, talking with a lot of people, they would talk about injection drug use, or slam sex, as it's called, and, maybe once or twice a month, and then not really ever again. So there is all kinds of different, types of people who use substances, and framing chemsex only within the discourse of addiction isn't helpful. And it's not helpful because it's prohibiting us from creating all kinds of resources that need to be developed. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And again, so with the highly stigmatized piece, this is a perpetuation of shame and trauma, and it just reinforces isolation. Nobody wants to come and talk about what they're going through if they know a service provider is going to judge them. And it is very much the case that people generally who use substances, this is the feeling. But if you compound that with queer sex, then there's this sort of added level of fear and shame that stops people from coming forward. So there's research, there's a whole list of research that has made up this presentation. It's available at the end. I know it'll be available in a PDF for you. I just don't have the energy to quote every particular researcher that I've put together, but you'll see that as we move forward. But based on the data that I put together and my own personal experience and the experience of others, a really good new definition of so traditionally, the tradition of chemsex is it's sexualized drug use. It is the fusion of sexual addiction and drug addiction that has created sort of this problematic thing that is happening. And that isn't a very good, that is a good definition for a very small portion of the people who engage in this phenomena, right? And so, another piece is that a lot of it is focused around cisgender gay men, and it's not very trans inclusive. There aren't a lot of really good trans inclusive sort of research. I know that it's starting to happen now, but so it's all very much focused on one particular sort of pigeonhole. And we know that women also engage in chemsex, but the research is focused solely on gay men and sort of the problem of new HIV diagnosis and that sort of quote unquote crisis. But really, a really good all-encompassing definition of what chemsex is a vehicle of personal and communal transformation rooted in sexual pleasure revolution outside of heteronormative confines via consciousness-altering substances. This is probably the most drug positive or chemsex positive definition that you'll see. I've put it together. I don't, it's a conglomerate of all of the research that I've put together. And so when you're looking at the phenomena of chemsex or party and play, you really need to have sort of a different lens, because if you're looking at it through a problematic sort of discourse kind of thing, then that's going to affect the support that you provide. That's going to affect what happens, how people receive support, speaking from personal experience. So this is a really good definition, I think, because I've coined it, but it's also very much about, this is about pleasure. This is about the release from all kinds of troubling pieces. So I'll talk about that now as I go on. So one of the big pieces behind chemsex, like a motivator, is the idea around sort of sexual sociability. And so really this thing has transformative potential for a lot of people. So a lot of people who a lot of people who are sort of trapped in a heteronormative oppressive kind of framework, maybe people who identify as men who have sex with men and not as gay or bi. There is this piece about it that is liberating, it's freeing, and so people get to sort of explore their sexuality in a way that they wouldn't in sort of a different context. The other piece is that there's this notion of agency as well. So there is about owning my own body, having choice over what I do, without having, it's sort of contra the, oh, you poor drug addict, you have been overtaken by this thing, right? It's not about that. Another piece is that it's about connection as well for a lot of people. There is very much this piece about people saying, like, I feel an immediate connection with somebody when we're getting high together and fucking that I can't get normally. And so there's like this, and there's an interesting community piece that happens. There's also, so there's also the replication of queer spaces. So we know there's a lot of places where queer spaces are shutting down. I know growing up, like the before sort of the digital world happened, there were gay bars, there were gay choirs, there were like places to go to be gay, to interact, to meet with people. But a lot of gay bars are closing. A lot of those traditional spaces aren't happening anymore. We saw that with the pandemic, that people became more and more isolated as well. And so what really this does is it helps to create space for people to come together within sort of their queer identity and celebrate their sexuality together. The other piece that's a big motivating factor behind this is the experience, right? People getting to try things that they wouldn't normally try. And whether that is someone who is very much not out or very much at odds with their own identity, all of a sudden now that those voices in your head that tell you, your sexual impulse is wrong are quiet. And you actually get to have pleasurable, fun, boom, sex kind of thing. So it's not just that, I had a therapist say to me one time, it's about getting high. Come on, give me a break. And there's so much more to it, right? You can't just reduce it to sort of one thing. And so for a lot of people, it's about a liberating experience to come and explore together. So it's about connection, it's about finding queer positive space, it's about the experience, and all of these things together create a really transformative experience. And then, so a lot of the times too, when we're talking about social determinants of health, there are sort of the traditional stuff, food and education and employment and income, but other pieces to consider are the stresses of hegemonic masculinity, right? And so there is this pressure within a heteronormative framework to sort of live up to this idea of what being a quote unquote man is. And that is very unachievable often for queer men, non-binary or transgendered folks. Like it's hard to sort of fit into this one thing, and that creates a lot of stress on people. Another piece is the homophobia that exists as well. That's really, really difficult. So I'm just going to look at my note for a sec. Yeah, homophobia. Also, the other piece is about the shared trauma of the AIDS epidemic, right? And so this is deeply rooted in queer consciousness and an experience of, it's not that long ago that millions and millions of people were dying or died. And so this is very much connected to the psyche of queer folk as well. And then the other piece is punitive laws. So these laws, the anti-drug laws that have been created are only increasing violence, they're increasing discrimination, and in effect, increasing disease. Somebody once said to me, the best way, the highest echelon of generating stigma is through law. And so that's another piece that needs to be rectified as well. And then the next piece is about minority stress. So this is a really big piece to think about as well for people who find themselves in a minority setting. And even when I talk about the queer community, that's sort of problematic as well. It sort of creates this homogenous group. And in fact, like we're not thinking about all of the different intersectionalities, right, of gender. We're not thinking about race, and bringing into queer theory, which is sort of the BIPOC queer experience as well. But anyway, whenever you find yourself sort of in a minority position, there is an incredible amount of stress that happens for folks. Maybe less so if you have the privilege of being sort of, a white man and you can hide your own minority piece or whatever that is. But for a lot of people, there is a huge amount of stress. So when we talk about the social determinants of health, we also need to talk about the fact that we need to change this landscape if we want to change sort of any of the negative outcomes that are being associated with it. It's too reductionist to say if you engage in chemsex, you will become HIV positive. Actually, these are the main contributors to new HIV infections as well. And so just pinning it on sort of chemsex is problematic, and it's contributing to that sort of discourse that's been created. So the other piece too is sort of this battle between consequence versus pleasure. So for a lot of people, when we talk about chemsex, especially in the service provider world, it, as I've been saying already, it's been framed within this problematic thing. But really what we're not looking at is sort of positive sexual identity, or getting in touch with your sex. It's a vehicle to access your sexuality when there are so many psychosocial barriers to accessing that. And the other piece as well is the reclamation of space. So I talked about sort of the recreation of queer spaces. So whether you're going to, a party or a hotel room or someone's house who's hosting, and then there are a group of people who are meeting together to sort of engage in this identity and their sexuality and pleasure. There's that piece as well to think about. The potential for transformation as well. So one example is maybe somebody who, has sort of grown up with this sort of cisgender thing thrust upon them. And now all of a sudden, when they're in this world, this phenomenon, engaging in party and play, they're able to try and clothes that aren't sort of gender conforming, and they're able to explore different identities, right? So there's that piece as well. And then the other piece that we're not considering as well is the liberated biolandscapes that we're in. So there's a little bit of Foucault in this, but with the introduction of pre-exposure prophylaxis, we saw new HIV rates go down by 21% in 2020 or 2021. I can't remember which, and that's the biggest decline we have ever seen. And so there is this piece that, like, the discourse that's created is like, if you're engaging in chemsex, they're not using condoms, they're contracting HIV, and nobody is focusing on how PrEP has created sort of a liberated space to engage in that. And really, why isn't the government creating stronger campaigns around PrEP? Why are they creating all of these sort of, qualifiers for if you should be on PrEP or not, right? Rather than, ending the stigma about living with HIV and pushing for PrEP in every sort of sphere as well. So there are these pieces to consider as well. And then, so like I said, the stigmatization of chemsex among queer individuals reinforces heteropatriarchal responses, and it ignores all of the positive that I've just sort of listed. The stigma itself leads to rejection, and it limits discussion within the queer community about this, right? So if this is a bad thing, if it's framed badly, then this is going to create stigma, which leads to isolation, right? People don't talk about it, people don't access resources, people, you know what I mean? So that's part of the problem as well. And also, this stigma extends to related practices like drug use, gender identity, HIV status, and that causes further isolation. Our drug policy also creates further stigma, and also trauma, right? There's this piece about the queer experience where there is a trauma about being queer. So when we talk about queering harm reduction, so when we're looking at chemsex from a queer theoretical lens, and we're seeing it as a vehicle of personal transformation, we're seeing this as, not pathologizing queer sexuality, we need to work backwards and think about, like, okay, so how do we support folks who are engaging in this, so that people feel safe and supported. And really, it's about meeting people where they're at, right? A lot of queer people don't feel comfortable going to the traditional spaces to access the places that are offering harm reduction supplies for a number of reasons. But so all of the research is talking about creating personalized prevention and specialized services. And so I'll list some of them that are here that are kind of working towards it. The one that I want to highlight the most, that I think is the best, and should be replicated in every major city is peer-and-peer support out of Edmonton. They were absolutely integral in helping me navigate sort of my own pathway to wellness when I had sort of lost my way. And what's great about it is that it's queer, it's based in peers, so people who use or who have used are supporting other folks, and it's not rooted in sober saviorism. At least it wasn't when I was there, right? Like this sort of notion that like, we're going to help you get better, right? It's what do you need, right? They would show up to your house with harm reduction supplies. They would show you how to use them. There'd be one-on-one counseling that would be offered. There would be support with, connecting to social services. So it is really one of the best models that exists. And I really, really believe that it needs to be replicated everywhere. And, other ways of doing that are creating peer networks in your local area. So, for people who host, people who have people over to party and play, equipping those people to have a closet loaded with harm reduction supplies so that people can access it from them. Another idea also is working with drug dealers, right? And giving them harm reduction supplies to hand out for free with folks as well. But really thinking about, it's hard to, for a lot of people who engage, sometimes there's this thought, right, when we're thinking about meth use, and it's not just meth when we're talking about party and play, it's all kinds of substances, but traditionally it's been sort of focused on meth. And, when we think about, sometimes a lot of people who are creating these programs are thinking about a particular single demographic of person. And within the queer community, it's everybody. It's people who are experiencing houselessness. It's a doctor in a penthouse. A doctor taught me how to inject. A nurse first injected me. My lawyer was my drug dealer. There is, so for those people, especially who are sort of in these higher profile positions, going and standing in line at your supervised consumption site to get supplies is not going to happen, right? It's not. So thinking about those pieces is really important. A lot of places are creating interactive websites to go to, especially to the UK, which are really fantastic because this is where people are going to get their information. So rather than creating a resource and expecting people to come to you, go where people are and help them access it that way. So the GMSH in Toronto is another really fabulous resource. They have just created a party and play guide, and I know we've handed it out like candy, and it's a really great resource. I think there's going to be on July 5th a webinar through Katie to talk about this particular resource and others like it. But they have a really great library of lived experience speakers who are talking about what this is for them, right? And the common message you'll hear is that it is about transformation, it's about liberation, it's about a pathway to sort of freeing your sexual experience. HIM Vancouver, Spill the Tea Ottawa, SafeLink in Calgary. These are all spaces that are touching on support. Out of the GMSH in Toronto, I know Jordan and a couple of other fellows have created sort of this zones of party and play, and like in zone 1 where it's a party, it's fun, I'm still experiencing pleasure, I have control. And zone 2, not that it's progressive, but zone 2 is maybe where there's some more problems that are happening. And so what's great about this is, as service providers, being able to create services that support folks who are finding themselves in some problematic situations, right? So helping with housing, helping with budgeting, helping with community and getting connected, right? For a lot of folks, sometimes when this goes, when the party goes a little bit dark, it's really about the lack of connection. It's about being really isolated. And a lot of times too, there's a lot of grief that's involved. Like we were talking about trauma and minority stress and all these things, right? So getting connected to services that will support and help is really critical. And so when we're talking about this, the traditional addiction discourses aren't helpful as sort of a broad stroke, right? Like that people who engage in chemsex are addicts and this is a problem, right? A lot of people who do so recreationally. There's two really great studies, one out of Canada and one out of the States, and they both sort of mirrored the same results. And they talked about, of the people who use substances, 80% do so in a recreational way. And we're talking about, the mom who has a bottle of wine when she puts the kids to bed. We're talking about the professor who smokes a joint after a lecture. We're talking about the cops who stop off at a bar to have a beer after work. We're talking about the doctor or the lawyer who's doing a couple of rails of cocaine to get themselves through whatever they're going through. But in that sort of realm, people keep their lives together. That's a lot of people. 80% of people who use substances, that it's not problematic. So you see applying the addiction discourses to 80% of the people where it doesn't apply isn't helpful. There are about 15% from the study who there are some things that are coming up that are making it complex, or the word problematic is also problematic, but it makes things complex. Whether people are using more frequently and more than they usually do, whether it's to sort of cope with what's going on in life or trauma or grief or whatever, and it's sort of becomes this sort of feedback loop where I'm experiencing problems, I use substances, and then so I use more substances, and then it just generates, that's 15% of folks. And then this study also talks about 5% and of that 15%, there is agency in terms of returning to recreational form of use, whether the life circumstances clear up, or your divorce is finalized, you've moved through your grief, you've maybe you've even gone to treatment kind of thing, and you've sort of recalibrated yourself. You can go back to sort of moderately or recreationally using. And then the studies also indicate there are 5% of folks who have quote unquote substance use disorder, and these are folks who it is sort of this psychological compulsion to use, can't stop until they burn their lives to the ground in any particular way. And so even if you're going with there's lots of different studies, there's lots of different ways to view substance use, but even just looking at that one, only 5% of those people would fit under addiction discourses. So that's one of the reasons why these are problematic. And so the point I'm making is that substance use can be complex, and immediately pigeonholing people in that addiction sort of sphere is really reductionist. And problematic labeling as well. And it's this is also sometimes substance use, not consciously, maybe consciously or subconsciously, is a rupturing of conformity, right? It is counterculture. It is moving outside, and so there's that piece as well. And when you just pigeonholing everybody into sort of this addiction sort of discourse, you're taking away people's agency, right? And you're thrusting people into sort of this helpless sort of role, and people aren't helpless. And I keep saying over and over, this can be a transformative experience for a lot of folks. And then there is an interplay between pleasure and risk, but that is with everything, right? And so only talking about chemsex as risk is difficult, because not a lot of people experience risk. And even the research, before 2020, 2021, that's very much about the transmission of HIV because of chemsex. There's some problems with the data. If you're thinking about it, only about 50% of people among the GBM community use condoms. And that rate hasn't gone up in the last 50 years. It hasn't changed with all of the things that we're doing, right? And so maybe you're just capturing a portion of that 50% who choose not to use condoms, and that is their choice, right? And so anyway, so coming to it from a risk perspective only is that's life. With life, there's pleasure and risk to everything. So there's lots of tensions that can be created around this. And the first tension that I want to talk about is about agency. So, in traditional discourses about chemsex with queer agency and sexuality, like I was saying, all the literature is talking about this sort of from a deficit perspective, that it's laden with risk. And the body research that I have reviewed about chemsex really talks about this as a vehicle for agency. So personal choice, decision-making, and experience, the body of another and one's own personal body, to own sexual pleasure for oneself, despite societal messaging about sort of hegemonic discourses about men's bodies, what they should look like in terms of shape, or what is sexually desirable, despite, age maybe, and the fear and guilt of the AIDS epidemic has left the queer community with a lot of tension. So the tension here is moving beyond the idea of the phenomena that takes over the person and renders them sort of a helpless addict or victim of terrible drug. And it moves towards an understanding of this as a choice of experimental liberation. And then the other piece is about embodiment. So a big piece about motivation for engaging in this phenomenon is a response to psychic deadness. And what that means is that, as a queer person, I didn't grow up seeing people kiss on TV, other couples that look like me kiss on TV. I had no modeling of relationships and how to navigate them and what sort of that pleasure looked like, right? And so there is a lot of times with queer sexuality, figuring it out on the fly, right? And so, there's a really good piece of research by Polios. He was a psychiatrist who sort of chronicled his experience with a patient who was engaging in chemsex or party and play. And he makes a fascinating connection to the fact that the lack of sexual role modeling, what healthy love and sex looks like within the context of homosex, has created sort of a fracturing within the human psyche. So chemsex becomes a vehicle for reconnecting the body and mind with sexual pleasure in a way that's positive despite traditional addiction discourses. So that's it. Polios is never sort of advocating for chemsex, but he used the personal experience of his patient, who was named Orpheus, to dissect what chemsex taught him about his own personal sexual trauma from childhood. And so it would be interesting to see other therapists sort of take this perspective as they guide people through their experience of chemsex, whether it's, while they're using it or as a roadmap for sort of exiting the party scene. And then the other piece too is the pathologizing of pleasure. So this was another common theme in the literature that I reviewed, sort of the pejorative connotations about hedonism. And much of the early research around chemsex almost pathologizes the drive for sexual pleasure by using words like compulsivity and sexual addiction. And early research doesn't seek to understand the drive for pleasure for its own sake, or as a means of escape from oppressive sexual discourses. So the literature that I reviewed really emphasized that chemsex is a vehicle for accessing pleasure, and that the vehicle itself, not the driver for that matter, is the problem. So the next piece, sorry, I'm just gonna move through that. This will be available to you. I know Lisa has said that this is gonna be available as a PDF for you. So the next, tensions continued. So the piece about vile landscapes. So like I said, with the introduction of pre-exposure prophylaxis, it has completely shifted the landscape for queer sexual revolution. For the longest time, members of the queer community either associated sexual expression with death due to the AIDS epidemic or something to be controlled by government messaging around condom use. And so the prevalence of condomless sex or barebacking in previous literature was seen as problematic behavior, but in the current literature, it's seen as a means of agency from external governances of the body and an intensification of intimacy for those who engage in queer sex. So this biomedical shift is changing the discourses on sexual expression. And I can't emphasize this enough. I remember, what time is it? How am I doing? When I lived in San Francisco in 2016, there were posters all over the subway, and it was like sort of this orgy of sort of bodies, naked bodies, and the slogan was Travada Whore. And it was just really emphasizing the play of like, here is this thing now where we can have sex without guilt and fear, right? And that's, it's huge. But I remember I presented it to an AIDS service organization in a different city, and they had, the response that I got was like, well, this is just getting permission to have sex without a condom, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, it is. Right. So anyway, there's that piece as well. The last piece, again, I'll reemphasize this again, is the idea about queer spaces. So another intersecting point is that this is a means of replicating queer spaces in the absence of traditional venues such as bars and clubs. And these provide an opportunity for gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men to formally and informally build connection with one another while engaging in pleasure. That's the biggest piece. So the relaxed and intimate atmosphere of chemsex parties fosters a sense of community and belonging that may not be possible in formal settings. So additionally, these parties serve as a safe space where individuals can explore their sexuality without fear of judgment or discrimination. So chemsex parties play a crucial role in creating and maintaining social networks for people. So this is also a really good point. So, so the implications of what we're talking about. So, sort of coming to it from a different perspective, we can really emphasize this as a psycho-spiritual sort of journey or expression, and then that creates more open dialogue. We can create harm reduction strategies that are more tailored to the specific community and avoid traditional discourses about addiction in relation to queer culture. And then emphasis should be on queer-informed sexual education, stronger campaigns for easier access to PrEP, non-judgmental STBBI testing, trauma-informed pathways to recovery. The understanding of chemsex has shifted from risk and harm discourse to recognizing it as a source for personal and communal transformation. It serves an alternative for queer spaces. And so we move beyond sort of this condemning of a hedonistic sort of thing into an expression of pleasure. And so this insight can help create safer and more supportive environment for queer sexual expression. So I honestly feel like coming to chemsex or party and play from this perspective as a service provider helps create a framework for which you provide the support that you provide. And it takes it out of the realm of judgment, it takes it out of the realm of stigma, and it just makes the services a lot more accessible for folks. I talked really fast and for a long time, but I think we can move into some questions. If you want to screenshot this, come and find me on LinkedIn. My contact information is there. The next screen will be the resources. But